For millennia, the Nile River has been the lifeblood of a land transformed. Before the grandeur of the pyramids, before the reign of powerful pharaohs, a civilization was born. This is the story of ancient Egypt, not as we often perceive it, but as it began, a journey back to the dawn of a remarkable culture. In a world still shrouded in the mists of prehistory, a society was emerging along this extraordinary river. Here, in the heart of Africa, the seeds of a great civilization were sown. From the fertile plains of Upper Egypt to the delta of Lower Egypt, a tapestry of human ingenuity was unfolding. We will explore the challenges and triumphs of these early Egyptians, the foundations upon which one of history's most enduring empires would be built. Join us as we embark on this epic journey to the cradle of civilization. The birth of a civilization. Egypt's story begins with the Nile River, the lifeblood of the civilization. The river was so vital that ancient Egyptians referred to their land as the gift of the Nile. Every year, the river flooded, bringing rich, fertile soil that allowed crops to thrive. Early Egyptians were among the first to develop advanced agricultural techniques, such as irrigation and crop rotation, which led to a surplus of food. This abundance allowed small communities to settle along the riverbanks and flourish. By around 5000 BCE, these small settlements grew into more organized communities, and social structures began to emerge. As the people of the Nile Valley started trading with neighboring regions, Egypt's economy strengthened, leading to the formation of powerful city-states. The two regions, Upper Egypt in the south and Lower Egypt in the north, developed their own distinct cultural identities. The Nile Delta in Lower Egypt, with its rich silt deposits, became the agricultural hub, while Upper Egypt, with its more arid environment, focused on trade and crafts. Around 3100 BCE, a warrior king named Narmer, sometimes identified as Menes, succeeded in unifying these two lands, marking the birth of the world's first nation-state. This unification was symbolized by the Narmer palette, a stone carving that shows Narmer wearing both the white crown of Upper Egypt and the red crown of Lower Egypt. With Narmer's reign, the early dynastic period of Egypt began, setting the stage for one of the longest-lasting civilizations in history. The Old Kingdom, the Age of the Pyramids. Egypt's Old Kingdom, 2686 to 2181 BCE, is known as the Age of the Pyramids for a good reason. The pharaohs of this era believed they were divine beings, descendants of gods who would live eternally in the afterlife. This belief led to the construction of some of the most awe-inspiring monuments in human history, the pyramids. The most famous of these structures is the Great Pyramid of Giza, built for Pharaoh Khufu. Standing at over 140 meters tall, it was the tallest man-made structure in the world for over 3,800 years. It's estimated that it took 20 years and around 20,000 workers to complete. Contrary to popular belief, the labor force likely consisted of skilled workers and artisans, rather than slaves. The pyramids were part of vast complexes that included temples, smaller pyramids for queens, and tombs for nobles. These structures weren't just massive tombs, they were the culmination of Egyptian beliefs about life, death, and the afterlife. Pharaoh Djoser's Step Pyramid at Saqqara, designed by the legendary architect Imhotep, was the first stone pyramid and laid the foundation for future pyramid-building techniques. During the Old Kingdom, Egypt also experienced a cultural boom. Egyptian society was highly stratified, with the pharaoh at the top, followed by nobles, priests, scribes, and artisans. At the bottom were the farmers and laborers who supported the economy. This complex social system allowed Egypt to manage vast resources and undertake massive building projects. But the Old Kingdom wasn't just about monumental architecture. It was also a period of significant advancements in mathematics, medicine, and writing. The Egyptians developed an early form of geometry to aid in pyramid construction, advanced surgical techniques for treating injuries, and the hieroglyphic script, one of the earliest known writing systems. Hieroglyphs were not only used for recording historical events, but also for religious texts, like the pyramid texts, which are some of the oldest known religious writings. Despite its achievements, the Old Kingdom eventually collapsed. The reasons are complex, but historians point to a combination of factors: political strife, economic problems, and possibly a severe drought that weakened the central authority. As the power of the pharaohs waned, local governors, called nomarchs, asserted control over their regions, leading to a period of chaos. The First Intermediate Period, a time of chaos. With the fall of the Old Kingdom around 20 and 81 BCE, Egypt entered the First Intermediate Period, 20 and 81 to 2055 BCE, a time of political fragmentation and social upheaval. The centralized authority of the pharaohs disintegrated, and Egypt was once again divided into Upper and Lower Egypt, each ruled by local leaders who often clashed with one another. For nearly 150 years, Egypt experienced turmoil. Local rulers, known as nomarchs, fought for dominance, and many regions declared themselves independent of the central government. This era has sometimes been described as Egypt's Dark Age, though it wasn't devoid of cultural developments. Art and literature continued to flourish, albeit in a more localized context. Religious practices also began to evolve, becoming more democratized. While the Old Kingdom's afterlife was reserved for pharaohs, the First Intermediate Period saw beliefs develop that allowed common people to hope for an afterlife. Famine also played a significant role during this time. Climate change led to lower Nile floods, reducing agricultural yields and causing widespread suffering. Egypt, once prosperous and stable, was now a land of uncertainty. The Middle Kingdom, the return of stability. Out of this chaos, a powerful ruler named Mentuhotep II rose to prominence, reunifying Egypt around 2055 BCE and inaugurating the Middle Kingdom, 2055 to 1650 BCE. Known for its cultural renaissance and political stability, the Middle Kingdom is often called Egypt's classical age. During this period, the pharaohs placed a renewed emphasis on public works and agriculture. Pharaohs like Amenemhat I and Senusret III improved Egypt's irrigation systems, making the land more productive. They also focused on expanding Egypt's borders, leading military campaigns into Nubia to the south, where they gained control of valuable gold mines. The Middle Kingdom also witnessed the creation of some of Egypt's most famous literary works. Texts such as the Tale of Sinuhe and the Instructions of Amenemhat reveal a deepening philosophical understanding of life, death, and morality. These writings explored themes of loyalty, justice, and the responsibilities of rulers. It was during this time that Egypt's bureaucratic system also became more refined, with officials playing increasingly important roles in governance. In the Middle Kingdom, pharaohs were seen less as distant gods and more as human rulers with divine duties. This change in perception was reflected in their art and monuments, which emphasized a pharaoh's role as a caretaker of the people rather than a remote god-king. However, the Middle Kingdom was not without its challenges. Egypt faced threats from both inside and outside its borders. The growing influence of Nubia in the south and increasing Libyan raids from the west put pressure on Egypt's defenses. Despite the military efforts of powerful rulers like Senusret III, the Middle Kingdom eventually weakened, setting the stage for the next period of instability. The Second Intermediate Period, foreign rulers and new technology. As the Middle Kingdom began to decline around 1650 BCE, Egypt entered the Second Intermediate Period, 1650 to 1550 BCE. This time saw the rise of the Hyksos, a foreign group from the Levant, who took control of Lower Egypt. The Hyksos were not purely invaders, but also settlers who brought new technologies to Egypt, including the horse-drawn chariot, composite bows, and bronze weaponry. The Hyksos capitalized on Egypt's internal divisions and set up their own dynasties, ruling much of the north. However, they also assimilated into Egyptian culture, adopting many Egyptian customs and religious practices. While the Hyksos are often portrayed as foreign oppressors in Egyptian records, their influence helped shape the development of Egyptian military technology, which the Egyptians would later use to their advantage. Meanwhile, Egyptian rulers in Thebes, located in Upper Egypt, began to resist Hyksos domination. Over time, these Theban rulers, particularly Kamose and his brother Amenhotep, waged a successful campaign to drive the Hyksos out of Egypt, leading to the birth of the New Kingdom. The New Kingdom, the Golden Age of Egypt. The New Kingdom, 1550 to 1070 BCE, represents Egypt's greatest era of wealth, military power, and international prestige. Often referred to as Egypt's Imperial Age, this was a period when Egypt expanded its borders far beyond the Nile Valley, reaching into the Near East and Nubia, and transforming itself into one of the ancient world's most powerful empires. Pharaoh Ahmose I began the New Kingdom by successfully expelling the Hyksos and reuniting Egypt. His reign marked a period of reconstruction and military expansion. Under the leadership of subsequent pharaohs like Thutmose III and Amenhotep III, Egypt became a dominant military force, establishing an empire that stretched from the Euphrates River in modern-day Syria to the Sudan. One of the most famous rulers of the New Kingdom was Hatshepsut, one of Egypt's few female pharaohs. She took power as regent for her young stepson, Thutmose III, but eventually declared herself pharaoh in her own right. During her reign, Egypt experienced a flourishing of trade, most notably with Punt, a mysterious land believed to be located in modern-day Somalia. Hatshepsut's reign was marked by peace and prosperity, and she commissioned a series of magnificent building projects, including her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, one of Egypt's architectural marvels. After Hatshepsut's death, Thutmose III took the throne and became known as Egypt's greatest military commander. He led campaigns deep into the Levant and Nubia, solidifying Egypt's control over its empire and earning the title Napoleon of Egypt. Thutmose III's military exploits brought vast wealth into Egypt, leading to a golden age of art, culture, and building projects. Amenhotep III, one of the wealthiest pharaohs, presided over a period of peace and artistic achievement. His reign saw the construction of the massive Colossi of Memnon and the Temple of Luxor. However, the most dramatic event during this time wasn't on the battlefield, but in the religious sphere. The Amarna Period, religious revolution. During the New Kingdom, Egypt's religion was polytheistic, with gods such as Ra, Osiris, Isis, and Horus playing central roles. However, one pharaoh attempted to radically change this. Amenhotep III's son, Amenhotep IV, took the throne around 1353 BCE and soon changed his name to Akhenaten in honor of the sun disk god, Aten. Akhenaten declared Aten to be the sole god, abandoning the traditional Egyptian pantheon in favor of a monotheistic religion. He moved the capital to a new city called Akhenaten, modern-day Amarna, where he and his family could worship Aten without interference from the powerful priesthood of Amun. Akhenaten's religious revolution shook Egyptian society. Temples to other gods were closed, and the traditional religious elite lost much of their power. Akhenaten's wife, Nefertiti, played a prominent role in this religious movement, and the couple is often depicted together in the art of the period, which became more naturalistic and intimate compared to earlier styles. However, Akhenaten's reforms were deeply unpopular with much of Egypt's population, and after his death, his successors, including Tutankhamun, quickly restored the old gods. Akhenaten's religious revolution was an anomaly in Egyptian history, and many later pharaohs erased his legacy, dismantling his temples and returning the capital to Thebes. The Reign of Tutankhamun. Though his reign was short and relatively unremarkable in terms of military or political achievements, Tutankhamun remains one of the most famous pharaohs in history thanks to the discovery of his nearly intact tomb in 1922 by British archaeologist Howard Carter. His tomb, filled with treasures and the iconic golden mask, has captivated the world's imagination and is one of the most significant archaeological finds of all time. Tutankhamun's reign, however, was significant in one key aspect: the return to traditional religious practices. His advisors, including the powerful Vizier I and General Horemheb, encouraged the young king to restore the old gods and move the capital back to Thebes. This re-establishment of the traditional religious order helped stabilize Egypt after the upheaval of Akhenaten's rule. Ramses the Great and Egypt's Imperial Zenith. The reign of Ramses II, also known as Ramses the Great, 1279 to 1213 BC, marks the zenith of Egypt's power and influence. Known for his military prowess, Ramses II led several campaigns to secure Egypt's borders and expand its influence. His most famous military encounter was the Battle of Kadesh against the Hittites, one of the largest chariot battles in history. Although both sides claimed victory, the conflict eventually resulted in the world's first recorded peace treaty. Ramses II's legacy extends beyond the battlefield. He was a prolific builder, commissioning more monuments and statues than any other pharaoh. Among his most iconic structures are the temples at Abu Simbel, which were carved directly into a mountainside and aligned so that twice a year, the sun illuminates the statues of the gods within. Ramses II ruled for 66 years, longer than most pharaohs, and his reign is often considered the height of Egypt's imperial might. His rule brought prosperity, and Egypt's influence stretched from Nubia in the south to the Levant in the north. The decline of the New Kingdom and the Third Intermediate Period. After the death of Ramses II, Egypt's fortunes began to wane. Successive pharaohs struggled to maintain the empire's vast borders, and external threats, particularly from the Sea Peoples, put increasing pressure on Egypt's military. Around 1200 BCE, the Bronze Age collapse disrupted the civilizations of the Near East, including Egypt. Trade routes were disrupted, and Egypt faced invasions and internal strife. The pharaohs of the 20th dynasty, such as Ramses III, fought off these invasions but were ultimately unable to prevent the gradual decline of the empire. The Third Intermediate Period, 1070 to 664 BCE, saw Egypt fragment once more. The once great empire was divided between rival rulers, and foreign powers such as the Libyans and Nubians exerted increasing influence over Egypt's affairs. Egypt's central authority weakened, and it became a battleground for foreign invaders, including the Assyrians. The Late Period and the invasions of Egypt during the Late Period, 664 to 332 BCE, Egypt experienced brief periods of resurgence. The Sate dynasty managed to regain control over a unified Egypt and launched efforts to restore the country's past glories. Pharaohs like Psamtikos rebuilt temples, revitalized trade, and re-established Egypt as a cultural and political force. However, Egypt's independence was short-lived. In 525 BCE, Persian king Cambyses II conquered Egypt, marking the beginning of the First Persian occupation. The Persians ruled Egypt for over a century, though they allowed the Egyptians some autonomy in local matters. Egypt regained its independence for a brief period under the 28th to 30th dynasties, but this revival was short-lived. In 332 BCE, Alexander the Great arrived in Egypt during his conquest of the Persian Empire. The Egyptians, weary of Persian rule, welcomed Alexander as a liberator. He established the city of Alexandria, which would become one of the greatest centers of learning in the ancient world. After Alexander's death, his general, Ptolemy, took control of Egypt, founding the Ptolemaic dynasty. The Ptolemies ruled Egypt for nearly 300 years, blending Greek and Egyptian culture. However, internal strife and increasing Roman influence led to the dynasty's decline. In 30 BCE, following the defeat of Cleopatra II and Mark Antony by Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus, Egypt became a province of the Roman Empire, marking the end of thousands of years of pharaonic rule. The legacy of ancient Egypt. Though Egypt eventually fell under foreign rule, the legacy of ancient Egypt has endured through the centuries. From the monumental pyramids and temples to the intricate burial practices and religious beliefs, ancient Egypt has left an indelible mark on human history. The civilization's advancements in engineering, medicine, art, and writing have influenced countless other cultures. The hieroglyphic script evolved into the Coptic language, which is still used in Egyptian Christian liturgies today. The architectural techniques used to construct the pyramids and temples have been studied and admired for millennia, and the mummies of the pharaohs continue to offer insights into the medical practices of the ancient world. Perhaps more than any other ancient civilization, Egypt's fascination with the afterlife and its efforts to preserve both body and soul for eternity continue to captivate modern audiences. Today, the treasures of ancient Egypt fill museums around the world, and the study of Egyptology continues to reveal new discoveries about this ancient land. The legacy of ancient Egypt is a testament to human ingenuity, creativity, and resilience. Spanning over 3 millennia, Egypt saw the rise and fall of dynasties, the building of some of the world's most iconic monuments, and the creation of a complex society that has influenced civilizations across time and space. From the grandiose pyramids of the Old Kingdom to the artistic and religious revolutions of the New Kingdom, the enduring legacy of ancient Egypt remains one of humanity's greatest achievements. Their art, architecture, and belief systems continue to inspire and fascinate us today. If you enjoyed this trip through time, please give it a thumbs up, share it with others who love history, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the past.